Good morning, everybody. I am in Shirakawa City in Fukushima, and I'm going to be diving into the best Shirakawa ramen shops. Shirakawa Ramen is a famous ramen style known throughout Japan, especially known for its noodles, which are actually pressed with a bamboo stick. I'm not making this up. I'm hungry. Let's dive into the best Shirakawa ramen shop starting now. Welcome back to 5 AM Ramen, your golden ticket to the delicious world of Japan's favorite soul food, ramen. I'm Frank, and as I often say, I'm sacrificing my body for the greater ramen good, bringing you the very best ramen that Japan has to offer. This is episode number 15 in a Northern Japan Ramen Series. This is the final episode too. In the first 14 episodes, I had 34 bowls of ramen in Gunma, Niigata, Yamagata, and Fukushima prefectures. I'm now still in Fukushima prefecture, in Shirakawa City, population about 60,000. This is a small city by Japanese standards, but the ramen here is anything but small. We'll get to that in a bit. Right before Shirakawa, in the previous episode, I was just in Kitagata City, an even smaller city that's obsessed with ramen. Kitagata is kind of tucked away, so you have to do this sort of loop, taking the Ban-Etsusai line back to this straight line corridor that is the Tohoku line. The Shinkansen, or bullet train, runs along this too. Going from Kitagata to Shirakawa, you have to stop over in Koriyama City along the way, which is what I did. And while I was there, I couldn't say no to a coffee break. Weather-wise, it definitely got warmer as I made my way down this corridor too. Snowy fields becoming dry fields. So to summarize, I went from Kitagata and now I'm in Shirakawa. And as such, you'll be hearing me make comparisons between Shirakawa Ramen and Kitagata Ramen. These two ramen styles are most definitely similar, but there are some key differences too. Bear in mind again that we're further south here in Shirakawa. We're close to Tochigi Prefecture, where in some places they like to prepare their ramen noodles with a bamboo stick or rod. And this is what you get at Tora Shokudo, the first Shirakawa ramen shop we're diving into. They are the Shirakawa ramen shop. I hop in a cab to get there, but for the rest of the day, and after Tora Shokudo, I'm going to be walking. The ramen noodles in this city are normally slightly thinner than what you get in Kitagata. At Tora Shokudo, these noodles are handmade, hand-pressed, and they're again using a bamboo stick. No fish in the soup. It's pork bones, whole chickens, and with some chicken oil on top to mingle with the soy sauce seasoning. No chemical seasoning here either. I go big and order the chashu wonton men. This comes with 5 dumplings, or wonton, and 3 huge slices of grilled chashu pork, a staple around here. Mind you, this bowl already comes with some pork slices, hiding below here. After finishing all this, I get back on the road, walking to ramen shop number 2. Alrighty, so here's my recap of Tora Shokudo, the most famous ramen shop in all of Shirakawa, and one of the most famous across the country. Tora Shokudo basically is Shirakawa Ramen, synonymous with it. And as you can see around me, real estate, not really a big issue. They have a big space there with both tables and counter seating. I was put at the counter and they made sure there was enough space between people. I basically had more than 2 seats to myself. You could feel the history inside. You could feel that they take their ramen very seriously, but it was also very streamlined. They had a team of 5, I believe, in the kitchen and 2 people taking orders, bringing people into the restaurant. I arrived a little bit after 11. I only had to wait about 10-15 minutes. And when I left, there was definitely a bigger lineup. You put your name on the sheet, they usher you in. Very simple. Now, as to the ramen, of course it was fantastic. And he agrees, I think, as well. Big dog. Even though his barking doesn't sound that big. Now, I got the chashu wonton men. Expectations were high and it delivered. First of all, I want to say that the bowl that it comes in is massive, huge bowl. This custom-made bowl is, I think, maybe the biggest bowl I've ever seen for ramen. Now, as to the soup, the soy sauce seasoning was relatively salty and really leaves this tangy aftertaste on your tongue. Outside of the seasoning, the soup itself was very light, very clean tasting, clear, very pure, let's say. But of course, no less tasty. Now the noodles, of course, were Shirakawa noodles. They basically use a stick to prepare these noodles, and they had wonderful texture, quite a lot of water in them, and very easy to slurp. Now lastly, for the toppings, they had both more old school chashu pork toppings, which is closer to Chinese char siu, even red a little bit. And then alongside that, they had the more modern, melt in your mouth chashu pork toppings. Both were excellent. I'm a sucker for the softer type, but I gotta appreciate the old school presentation as well. And it's common here in Shirakawa for a lot of places to have that old school type of chashu pork. And Tora Shokudo, of course, is the flag bearer for this style. The dumplings were fantastic. They were in that head bobbing ghost style. I don't know what else to call it. That hanging wrapper, the wrappers were great. And of course, the pork inside was delicious. I will say they were very subtle in flavor. They didn't use a lot of seasoning, but maybe that was just to have the pork really stand out. Otherwise, for toppings in terms of vegetables, you had spinach, negi, and also raw onions you can add as you like. And those provided little electric jolts in the broth. And it was a nice contrast with that lighter broth, let's say. Overall, a delicious experience at Tora Shokudo. My next ramen shop is about an hour walk from here. As you can see, I'm pretty much in the middle of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but yeah, right next door to nowhere. So I have a little bit of hiking to do. There's no way I can call a cab out here. I'm not driving. I'm gonna walk off some of those calories and get ready for bowl number 2, which is also gonna be Shirakawa Ramen. Of course it's Shirakawa Ramen. I don't think in this town they would consider any other ramen style to be ramen. I walked for an hour from here to here for bowl number 2. Which is at Teuchi Chuka Soba Suzuki. The word Teuchi means handmade, so they're taking proper care of the noodles here too. I ordered their Teuchi Wantan Men, which like before is basically a silly amount of charcoal roasted chashu pork and handmade dumplings. I was like, why not? Let's continue with the big portion theme today. The soup is chicken bones, the Miyazaki Jidori breed, and also pork bones from the famous Nasu Kogen farm. Similar to Tora Shokudo, our first ramen shop, but also a little bit different this ramen. Let me explain more on the ground, where it's gotten a bit colder. You'll see me making some clothing adjustments accordingly. My next ramen shop is about a 20-minute walk from Suzuki. And while I'm walking, let's talk about Suzuki. So of course, their ramen is a Shirakawa style, so it's very similar to what was there at Tora Shokudo, but a few subtle differences. The soup had a bolder soy sauce flavor. It was stronger, let's say, and the soup was a little bit more oily rich. I think the layer of oil that was in there, you could see at the top, was thicker than that of Tora Shokudo. So if you're looking for a little bit heavier of a bowl, Suzuki might be your jam. In addition to that, toppings wise, pretty similar. The dumplings, it was a little bit interesting to kind of pull it up. I felt like a claw machine, kind of going for this dumpling mound there, right in the middle. Somehow managed to pick up some wrappers and dumplings. There was a lot of wrapper in these. That's not to say they didn't have any meat in them, the dumplings, but there was just like a mountain of silky wrappers there. I think also, the noodles here were more firm. They were more dense than what you had at Tora Shokudo, and less of that kind of springiness that you get when they have a lot of water in them, but more fighting back. But outside of that, very similar bowls. This place was delicious. I really liked the interior. You can see that they haven't changed a lot since they've been around. And whereas Tora Shokudo was more like an assembly line in the kitchen, this place very much had a cozy, run by the same family sort of feel. Both delicious, and of course I'm going to squeeze in one more bowl of Shirakawa Ramen. And yeah, my ramen shop is not too far away from here. And I arrived. This is the final bowl in this video and the final bowl in this Northern Japan Ramen Series, bowl number 37. This honor, if you can call it that, goes to ramen restaurant drum roll Kafute. I decide I have to continue the ramen pattern, ordering ramen with dumplings and chashu pork, the chashu wantan men. What did I get myself into? Look at all that chashu pork. These are extra smoky in flavor too. 3 bowls in a row isn't record-breaking for me, but these bowls were enormous with the extra toppings. The soup in Kafutei's ramen is pork and chicken bones with 2 soy sauces guiding that soup. One is local, and the other soy sauce, a darker one, from the Chiba region of Japan. Naturally, the noodles are made in-house. Let's go to me on the ground. I found a random field to speak from, away from traffic. It's quiet. I can watch the cars pass by peacefully, also deal with my food coma, and give you a recap of Kafute. So the ramen at Kafute was kind of in between Tora Shokudo and also Suzuki. It was oily like Suzuki, but didn't have as bold a soy sauce as its Suzuki, closer to Tora Shokudo, but not as light as Tora Shokudo. Hopefully that makes sense, but think of it as in between the first two ramen shops in terms of the consistency and the flavor of the soup. At each of these places, I don't know if this was a smart thing because I'm pretty full right now. These were huge bowls. The dumplings here, yeah, same silky wrappers that you have. Delicious, of course, but there was a lot of chashu, which I did not expect. The chashu pieces here were massive. They are the older school char siu, basically coming from Chinese cuisine, fork roasted. So you get a nice roasted, smoky flavor to them, but they are on the tougher side, and I prefer my chashu a little bit more modern and soft. If you want a lot of protein and better bang for your buck, feel free to get the chashu wonton men. The noodles were also a little bit more firm, similar, I would say, to Suzuki. And on another note, what was interesting about that whole street is I was seeing ramen shop after ramen shop after ramen shop. That whole street basically was lined up with ramen shops. It was quite crazy. But my work here in Shirakawa is done. This is a fascinating, great ramen style. And if you have a chance to come out to Shirakawa, yeah, visit any of these three places. The Northern Japan Ramen Series is now officially coming to a close. Little emotional for me here. Hope all of you enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm gonna put the right number if I'm wrong, but I think I hit 36 bowls? So I miscounted. It was actually 37 bowls in total. Let's blame it on the food coma and my counting ability. It was a wonderful trip. Gunma, Niigata, Yamagata, and then finishing here in Fukushima. Thank you all for watching, and take care of yourselves and each other. Frank from 5 AM Ramen signing out. I got the birds of paradise hair going again. The dumplings were fantastic.